The core eject is a powerful and versatile tool at your disposal. Not only can it be used offensively, but it's also got applications for movement. I've covered a number of these different functions in other videos, and this time around we're going to talk about the other properties of the core grenade and core sniping. Let's get into it. The core grenade is a physical object that's affected by explosions and shockwaves, meaning that they'll send it flying in other directions. If you're in a chaotic fight with lots of explosions, this could potentially interfere with where your core will land if you're not paying attention. This also applies to the Knuckle Blaster shockwave. Cores can also interact with each other, but only slightly. If two cores touch, they'll simply bounce off one another. You can also launch cores off of jump pads or juggle them on one until they despawn. The core itself has a lifetime of around 30 seconds. It's also the primary target of a ricochet from the marksman, as long as it has line of sight. Core eject grenades will also bounce off of malicious faces. These can lead to some interesting setups for combo potential. One thing you might not notice initially about the core grenade is that they do not share the player's momentum like coins do. This means that, if you're in movement, the core will not follow with you and will instead launch along its path from the exact spot where you let it loose. Since the core will essentially move towards the spot where you are aiming at, you'll be able to easily predict where it'll go. This does take some practice to get the hang of, and different charge times will give you different projectile arcs. This is incredibly important to understand when you want to lob the grenade, or, more importantly, go for core snipes. If you're not aware of what a core snipe is, it's when you shoot the core eject grenade with a hit scan weapon, like the revolvers, or the electric rail cannon. You can also snipe it with a malicious rail cannon, but we'll get to that in a moment. Core sniping increases the range and damage of the core explosion, now called a super explosion, doubling the damage and doubling the range. The core at the center, or 0 point, does 3.5 damage with a falloff of 2.3. So sniping doubles that damage to 7 at the 0 point, with the falloff being 4.6. Now remember how I said you can snipe with the malicious rail cannon? This results in the largest explosion in the game currently, and the community has taken to calling this technique the Nuke. Something else you may have noticed is that yes, you can actually use the malicious face's beam for an assisted nuke. I've covered it briefly in my P1 guide and my easier Ultra Boost video, but there's some things I neglected to mention on it since I last covered it there. When you perform a nuke, the damage at the 0 point is 13.25, almost double that of the normal core snipe. It has two falloff ranges. Falloff 1 does 10.85 damage, and falloff 2 does 4.6. Note that using the electric rail cannon does not result in a nuke and will instead produce a normal super explosion from a core snipe. So what are some ways to make core sniping easier? Well, first thing I would say is to set custom keybinds, and then get used to using your keys to swap your weapons. The key to faster sniping is faster weapon swapping. You should also practice sniping the core at different charge levels so you're more easily able to predict the path of its arc. Typically speaking, the longer the charge, the faster and less of a curve to that arc you'll get. If you give yourself some space, you can ignore needing to hit the core directly by using a ricochet from the marksman. This is probably the easiest way to hit the core if you're moving around a lot, and if you're good at hitting your coins. For myself, I typically like to approach core snipes from the air. While I'm moving, I like to move either forward or backwards, drop the core, then snipe it. I usually try to dash too so I can avoid the explosion, since I typically detonate the core fairly close to myself. There are some additional movement options that you can utilize as well with core sniping. First is the vertical CE boost. It's very simple. Aim up, toss up a core, and shoot it to gain a decent amount of height. Next is the D blast. Toss a core close by, and as you snipe it, you want to dash through during the hit stop. If done correctly, you should get a decent boost and take about 23 damage. There's also a mid-air version of this tech that was discovered by Debatable. While in the air, dash and drop a core. Hold the S key and swap to the revolver. The core should be in front of you. Now snipe the core and dash through during the hit stop again to get a 23 damage mid-air CE boost. So there you go. I hope you all learned something this lesson, and I'll have more advanced courses arriving soon, specifically a follow-up to the coin mechanics guide. For now, class is dismissed, and I'll see you all in the next lesson.